This is Meredith for Real, the Curious Introvert, and I'm Meredith. Here, we explore the taboo and paradoxical aspects of society. I explore the topics people think about but don't ask about. The results give you the nuanced answers you crave, not just the Google results making headlines. My mission, and yours if you choose to accept it, is to make a more curious future for everyone. Each episode is different, so bring your ADD and your earbuds and have a look around. Oh, this episode, y'all. This is a remastered favorite that originally aired as a two-part series, with one part sharing the details of an accident that made them the accidental swingers, and the second part answering questions that you sent in. You'll hear the accident that made them the accidental swingers and answers to the questions you're probably thinking right now. Since this was recorded in 2021, a lot has changed with the accidental swingers, so be sure to listen all the way to the end to the outro message where I update you with a text that I got from one of them right before airing this. And a little behind the scenes insight for you, the day that we recorded part one, the air conditioning where we record broke. So I had to move to a new space minutes before recording. And that space was completely untreated for sound. So you'll notice a lot of echo in the first half. The second half was recorded on a different day in a better space. So that's the reason for the sound difference halfway through. Lastly, if you end up liking this episode, you'll also like the one I did with the psychotherapist who is also a swinger. We explored the question, what is monogamy anyway, and who decides what that means? It's episode 214. All right, friends, keep it curious. The first wedding anniversary gift is paper. The 12th is silk. And the 25th is a membership to your local swingers club? No. Well, about 4% of Americans classify themselves as swingers, and this is 4 times more common than being a natural redhead, which is how I measure nearly all statistics, by the way. My next guests are a couple in their early 50s who have been married 25 years. They describe themselves as average. Professional jobs, kids, vacations at Disney World. They also call themselves the accidental swingers, which is also the name of their podcast where they chronicle their journey. Today, they're going to share how they got started in this lifestyle, answer a lot of questions, and share some tips on how to more openly communicate with your partner. Curious what kind of marriage advice swingers have? Me too. Curious if you can hear someone blushing? We'll find out. Happy to be married, happy to share, and happily swinging into the next 25 years of matrimony, Tristan and Marina. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thanks for having us. What a great way to describe our life.
We can make t-shirts somehow that include it. So let's dive right in because they want to know your origin story of how you became the accidental swingers.
Well, it genuinely was accidental. And the super compressed Reader's Digest version is we had some friends that live in our neighborhood who we had known for a couple of years and really just kind of saw, casual basis at driveway drinks and things like that. We had never actually gone out, have dinner or anything like that until, one day at a driveway drinks, they said, we really should hang out sometime and just go out to dinner. And, we really got along well with them. We agreed to go out and hang out and have dinner. And so we did. What we didn't know is that they were living a non-monogamous lifestyle. We were not. We had been at that point married 22 years, I believe, and been together for 26 years. And so, we thought nothing of it. It was just a regular go out and hang out with some friends. And, that date was fun. And we really couldn't call it a date at that point, but we had a good time with them. And so they said, hey, let's do this again in a couple of weeks. And so we did. It was at that second time going out that things got a little bit more interesting. We took a long Uber ride to another city in our region, and we went out to a very nice dinner, and then we went to several bars and had a lot of adult beverages. And
yeah, there were quite a few. Yep.
Yeah. And we wound up at a Latin dance club, which for me was a very uncomfortable place because I dance like a baby deer who's just been born, if you can kind of have that visual. So, luckily there had been enough old fashions and mojitos in the interim that I did just fine. At some point during the evening, we had kind of paired off, and I was talking to the wife and Marina was talking to the husband, and, which in hindsight, we kind of understand now was by design, but we had no idea because we didn't know that we were on a date.
That
But
is
we were on a date. And so we wound up at this Latin dance club, grinding essentially on the dance floor. And at some point, the husband kissed Marina.
Mm-hmm.
And
I said, whoa, I'm a married lady. We don't do that. And he said, okay. He said, okay, let's go back to the table. So we did. And we get back to the table and he looks at his wife and he said, you need to take her to the bathroom. So we go to the ladies' room and the wife looks at me and she says, it's okay with me if it's okay with you. And
that was her big talk. Like
that was the big talk. See, I swear to God, that's what she says. And I said, it's okay with me if it's okay with you. Because who am I to say what's not okay? Like, I really am thinking, I really don't know what she's talking about, but I guess she was okay with her husband kissing me. We went from the tape back to the table and he said, take her to the bathroom. And that was the talk I got. So I just agreed to whatever was going on and said, okay, sure. That's okay too, whatever that means. And we went back out to join them.
Yeah. And so we just resumed the dance / grinding on the dance floor. And then at some point it was decided that we all needed to head home. Mm-hmm. So they had to get up really early in the morning for some kid event that they had to go to. And we're like, all right, fine. So we all pile into the Uber van and I wound up in the back seat with the wife. And then Marina was in the middle seat with the husband. And I'm still pretty clueless about all of this.
I just knew it was okay.
Yeah.
Nothing at all.
Yeah. So, right, exactly. Now, clearly I picked up on the vibes that, something sexy was happening, but I didn't really realize that, that's the direction it was going. And in the middle seat, the husband kind of leaned over and started kissing Marina. And I thought, oh, well, then I'm going to lean over and kiss this woman. And so I did. I kind of gauged my activities on Marina's activities. And so that escalated relatively quickly. By the time we were back on the interstate, we were all making out in the back of this Uber van like teenagers and just dead silent as everybody's making out. And at some point, the Uber driver even said, is everything okay back there? And
I was mortified because I'm like, oh my God, the only thing that I knew was this was okay. And so yet, how do you explain to an Uber driver what's going on? And then I thought the Uber driver doesn't know us from Adam. So he doesn't know who's who and who's with who or who's with what.
I don't know what's going on either, but I'm glad that it is.
Oh my gosh.
It's really hot and fun.
Yeah. And I think you also were like, whatever Marina's doing in that seat, I can get away with too, because I can't get in trouble. If she does it, I can do it too, and I won't get in trouble for it.
That was exactly my mental analogy.
That's funny. Tristan, I can just I'm picturing you making out, but you've got like one eye, like looking at the other seat. And yeah, that's hilarious. Okay. So at what point did you sit down and go, okay, let's have a chat, shall we? That isn't in the bathroom 7 mojitos deep.
Are you talking about between us or
between
the other couple?
The two of you?
Yeah. It was on the way home to get to the punchline, and it's a much longer story. It can be heard on our podcast. We got back to their house. The Uber driver dropped us off and nothing happened. We kind of all separated. They had to get up early. We walked home.
Like, what?
Yeah, it was like
the fuck was that? Like, what just happened? And because all I got was the it's okay talk. So I said, we were walking home and I said, do you think that there are swingers? And we looked at each other. We were like, no. What does that even mean? Like, no, there's no way that that's what that is. And so we had talked ourselves out of the fact that that's what their lifestyle was until we had a conversation, said, well, what would that be like? Well, how would that look? We talked about going on vacation years ago, right after our second kid was born. We talked about maybe going to one of those vacation resorts where people kind of get a little naughty and maybe take off their bathing suits and see what happens. We thought, ooh, wouldn't that be great? So when we lose 50 pounds and we work out and we look awesome like Ken and Barbie, then we'll do that. So needless to say, that never happened.
We created a safe buffer. We didn't have to
follow
through on that.
Right. We never really had talked about it in years. Years had gone by since we'd even talked about anything like that. And life was normal and got in the way. And, married for such a long time, we went through our ups and downs, our highs and lows and all that kind of stuff. And we were in a fine place and things were okay. And then this happened. And so we talked about that, like, what would that look like? But we still weren't convinced that they were in the lifestyle. But we said, let's go out to dinner again. Gee whiz, that was really fun. What could possibly happen again? And
No, I think you were a little more assertive than that. Okay.
What did I say?
Let's pick up where we left off.
Oh,
'cause
yeah.
that was
Oh,
really
I
hot.
said that. Yeah.
Okay, that is much more assertive. He's not wrong.
Exactly.
He's not wrong.
That is kind of a good point to the story, isn't it? Well,
I think we made it clear that we were all in afterwards.
Ah, okay.
I guess I was kind of like bull by the horns and see what really happens here, because why screw around and wait for something else to happen? So I did. And yeah, we did. The short version is that in between our texting and talking about the next dinner date, she started using words and terms and things that really made me think they are in the lifestyle. They're swingers. And I don't know what that means. So the super fun part was that she would say things like, well, do you guys have any rules or guidelines? And I said, what are your rules and guidelines? And she laid them all out. And I agreed with whatever she said. I'm like, yep, we do whatever you do. That's exactly how we do it. And I had no idea what she was talking about. She said, we always play in the same room. And I said, oh, us too, for sure.
Always have.
Always have. And she said, we never take one for the team. And I said, oh, us either. I had no idea. I'm like, yeah, we would never do that, because I figured I'd figure it out later. So we had like 3 weeks in between the time of that conversation. I was going out of town. So our follow-up date was going to be 3 weeks down the road. So we actually, as soon as she and I finished texting, I texted Tristan and I was like, holy shit, they're swingers. I swear to God, they're swingers. She's using all these terms I don't even know. And I just agreed to everything. So I have no idea what we're doing.
Oh my God.
And I have no idea what I just got us into, but we have this date now in 3 weeks. And apparently we're supposed to have sex with them, because that's part of it, but we're not taking one for the team. And I have no idea what that means, but at least we're covered there.
So my
really,
next
really
question is, what does take one for the team mean? And my listeners want to know, what are your rules?
Okay. Well, do you want to explain the take one for the team?
Yeah, taking one for the team is when two couples get together to have a sexual relationship like this. It's very common that there's not a four-way sexual attraction or even a four-way social attraction. And typically one of the partners is a little less interested than the other. And when that goes really far, where somebody's like, yeah, all right, I'll have sex with her so that you can have sex with him because I'm not into her, but you're into him. That's taking one for the team.
Oh, okay.
And so that's typically what you'll hear is that people say, we're not going to do that. We need to be all in. We need to all be mutually attracted. It never happens, or really rarely happens.
Which part rarely happens?
That there's the four-way connection and attraction, both directions.
I think it depends on...
Well, the level of what you're looking for.
Right.
If you're just looking for one night to have fun, but if you want to have more of an ongoing friendship and friends with benefits type situation, that's very difficult to come by.
There's a lot of, everything's on a spectrum. Everything's a spectrum. So you never know what the relationship's going to turn out to be with whatever couple that you connect with. I mean, if it's obvious there's no connection, there's no connection. But if you have some connection, you want to try it out and see what happens. You don't know what each couple wants to do. Have more of, like you said, more friends with benefits type thing. A lot of couples are looking for that. Some couples just look for one night stands type things. And so it's really whatever you want to make it. And sometimes it changes within the couple, within whatever they're doing or where they're going or what their vacation is or their event or whatever's happening. So yeah. And then to answer the other question about our rules, you said our rules. So we had rules to begin with. And when we did a lot of research, and we actually listened to a lot of podcasts in that 3 week period between the time. There's a funny story about the podcast listening stuff that's on one of our episodes. So we knew what other people had kind of said that they did. So we said that we were also going to always play in the same room. So that means that if you're together with another couple, you're all together in the same place. And that makes for a really hot connection. And there's a lot of steamy, fun stuff that goes on there. So that was one of our rules, that we would always be together.
That was the main one.
That we were going to not have feelings for other people. That was a trap that we didn't want to fall into. And I think there's a couple of others that we weren't, like different styles of play. We were also interested. We didn't want to have one night stands. We felt like we really did want to create relationships have friends with benefits and meet other couples that way. So true to form in the way that most things go for the accidental swingers, we screwed that up pretty fast. And our first big event, we accidentally got separated when we met this fabulous couple who we're still close with today. And we were at a play.
We were at a
sex club. We were in New Orleans.
Don't sugarcoat it.
I know. I'm sorry. I was trying to think of nice things to say. It was a sex club.
Yeah.
But it's nice. It's a very nice.
Yeah, it's a very beautiful place.
So we were touring with them, and we got to the playrooms, and the woman in the couple said to Tristan, "We're going to stay here." And she grabs him, drags him to the room, and shuts the door. And off he went. And so off the other guy and I went, and that was our first experience with playing in separate rooms. But we didn't plan it. We didn't talk about it, and we never anticipated it happening. But we were with this really great couple, and everybody knew where everybody was, and it happened. And so we came back to the hotel, and we said, "Oops. What happened in your room?"
Oh my goodness.
And then, well, that's what happened. So then it was like this whole retelling of like, well, tell me what you did. And Tristan loves hearing all the stuff that goes on with me. And then it was kind of exciting and hot to retell the whole story about our interaction. And I got to hear about his interaction because normally we're right there. So we don't recount it where we were with each other.
Mm-hmm.
So we really figured out, and that was like 4 months into the process. So everything we really realized that we had talked about were our rules. We talked to another couple and they said, it's better to have guidelines because rules, it felt like we broke a rule, even though we were both okay with it, but we both felt terrible and we're like still with this fabulous couple. But in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, oh man, but we didn't talk about this and I hope he's okay. And I hope he's not mad. But she dragged him into the room, so I can't get into too much trouble. And so you don't want to have that going through your head. And so we changed our rules to guidelines. And we don't have rules. And our guidelines now are, we would like for these things to happen. If we're at an event together or at a party and we're going to go off and play, we try to find the other person to say, hey, we're going to go off over here. But if he's busy or if the timing is not right for me to go and try and find him, then we've given each other the grace to be able to say, make the best decision you can. This is what we would like to have happen. So we each know where we are, but we've given ourselves the permission to mess up. And then we have to talk about it later.
Because whenever somebody steps over a boundary or a guideline or whatever we call them, it's never malicious and it's never intended to hurt. It's just always genuinely the circumstances are what they are. Mm-hmm. And we've learned to become very fluid. And as we've evolved in this lifestyle, so have our guidelines, boundaries, what have you.
Yeah. And I love how the two of you, you talk about it, you come back and you talk about it. And I definitely don't want to skip the tips that you have for our listeners about how to be more open in your communication, because if you're watching or listening to this right now and you can't already see or hear the chemistry between these two, I mean, you're probably dead. So it's just so neat because it's so different for most people. We've never had an opportunity to have insight into this area. So to make sure that I respect the questions of my listeners, would the two of you be okay for some rapid fire questions? Because
sure.
I mean, there are some good ones and I hate to skip over them. Is it true that a star on the outside of the house or a white rock outside of the house means that the people who live in there are swingers?
I don't know, but I'm going to go put a white star and a big rock out in front of the house right now.
It may simply mean that they like stars and white rocks.
There are myths, tons and tons of myths and things like that. So you'll see our little pineapple here. That's our logo. A pineapple is loosely associated with the swinging community. It's one of the more worldwide kind of recognized ones. Usually it's an upside down pineapple. So the joke is if you're in a grocery store and you see a upside down pineapple in someone's shopping cart, that means that they may belong to the same club that you belong to.
Or maybe they were careless and put in
yes, but the upside down pineapple or two. But of course, I'm from the South and I'm a Virginia girl. And so it's like, that's a sign of hospitality. So to me, that doesn't mean anything.
We are very hospitable.
Yeah, we are. So. And we have lots of pineapples everywhere now, just in case. It's like, so homey and so nice. And but that's the one. And then the other one that is sometimes also recognized within the community is if somebody wears a black ring on their right hand, that will be sometimes a signal. Sometimes it's not. Everybody's wearing Aura rings or the black titanium bands now and things. So it really is maybe not. But there is nothing that says, hey, we are swingers.
So that leads me to my
unless
second.
those words come out of somebody's mouth.
Or they're sitting behind a sign that
Right.
says,
Accidental swingers.
accidental swingers. That's a pretty good sign. You see these logos somewhere.
Then we know. Well, that
Yeah.
leads me to the second listener question, which was, how do swingers find one another?
There are a multitude of websites that are essentially dating websites where you can go on and put up a profile and meet other people in your area and communicate that way and then set up meetings.
Like a match.com or cupid.com,
Yeah, exactly.
but it's for adult fun. And so they vary by region. There are ones that we use down here. We're in Florida, are SLS, which I think is swinger lifestyle or swing lifestyle, but SLS. And there's SDC, which is
Swinger Date Club,
date
I think.
community. Yeah. And then there's Cassidy and then Quiver. There's a bunch of them. Honestly, it's really super fun. You can almost always get a free account and go look up these swinger websites, swinger dating websites. Just Google it and it will come up. And if you see someone you're seeing them because you're looking too. So be respectful.
What about comparison? What if you swing with someone and the other person is better in bed than your husband or your wife?
Well, that's bound to happen. And it may not necessarily be better. It may just be different. So Tristan and I were together for 26 years, dating and together. So I had one partner for 26 years. Guess what? Everyone's different in bed than he is. And
vice versa.
Right. And that's okay. My body is totally different than other women's bodies, which is really kind of cool, like to have this experience. And we get to talk about it together, which again is part of the fun part of that, but that's going to happen. And so we decided for us to embrace that. Of course, they're going to be different. And of course, it's going to be better in the sense of it's just because it's different. So let's talk about that. And if I come home with something like, oh my God, this was great. This guy did XYZ. Let's totally try that. And he might go, yeah, no, I don't want to try that. Or I might go, yeah, no. That's a great thing for you to do that person the next time we see them again. And that's okay. But that's what it's all about. And that's okay. And the beauty of it is that I don't have to feel like, oh my God, now I have to do whatever that amazing woman did when she was pleasing him orally, that if I don't crack that code, it's not the end of the world because it's not going to make us or break us.
So I got a lot of questions about, the state of the union, the state of your marriage. Obviously, you already shared there was nothing wrong with your marriage when you decided to swing. It was truly accidental, and it just sort of worked out. And there's parts of it that continue to be accidental, and parts of it that are super intentional. Can you tell me one way that swinging has enhanced your relationship?
Yeah, absolutely. Our level of communication now, it was already good. We already had a great relationship, but the level of communication that we feel is required to be successful in this lifestyle is really, really high, like PhD level communication. And so that's really been enhanced. And the more that that's enhanced, then the natural result of that is an enhanced relationship and a better relationship. And we're kind of, just by the nature of what we're talking about with one another all the time, we're constantly making ourselves vulnerable to one another. And in my conception, vulnerability breeds trust, and trust breeds intimacy, and then intimacy is the ultimate goal in our marriage and our relationship because that fosters love. So, that, and I think mostly trust is the relationship builder for us and how we've improved.
The other thing too, I would say, is that it's been such a growth for each one of us individually. So I talk about it often that as a woman in my early 50s, I totally rediscovered myself. My body does stuff now that I didn't know it was capable of doing. And when you're allowed the opportunity to explore different things with different people, it's like, oh my God, that's what that feels like. And it's not because we didn't have a good sex life. We had a fine sex life. We had a married for 25-year couple sex life. And it really lit a fire in me that I didn't realize had gone out. And so that personal kind of introspection, and then Tristan experiences his own. And we've really talked about that too, because we're both experiencing these kind of deeper introspective moments and light bulbs going off about ourselves. And we're like, wow, this is really crazy. Like, we didn't know this was something else that could happen. And again, because we're so open and sharing that, we're on that journey with each other, even though it's our own personal journey as well. So it's really been an amazing experience for us.
Yeah, for me, I've always had a lot of social anxiety, as you can imagine, is not a really good trait to have if you're out trying to meet women to have sex with. And so I've grown
over that, didn't you?
real fast.
Oh my goodness. That is so great. And I love that, Tristan, you said communication was the first thing out of your mouth when you said it improved your marriage and enhanced y'all's relationship. Okay, so question 1 from my listeners is, what type of swingers are you?
Wow. So what does that question mean? That's an interesting question.
Yeah, we've never really been asked that.
Yeah.
Well, they kind of expanded to say that, do both people have dates at the same time? Does one person just watch while the other plays? Do you swing both ways? Is it just hetero? Do you have to find a couple? Like, both of y'all find a couple that you like? Or if, Tristan finds one person, but Marina doesn't, then you still play? I guess there's different flavors. Does that explain it?
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there.
There are so many different ways that you can play. Mm-hmm. I think for us, the answer is that we kind of go with the flow. And we started off with we thought we would only going to be with couples. We thought that was really what the connection was going to be. And then we decided to broaden our horizons, and we kind of just didn't take anything off the table. We haven't had all of those experiences, but we're open to having any of those experiences depending on who it's with.
Mm-hmm. We really just kind of take situations as they come, and we're very open to just about anything. Sometimes we do play with other couples where it's all 4 of us. Sometimes we split off, and Marina will be in one room and I'll be in another room with the woman. Sometimes we do have separate dates altogether where I will go off and be with somebody, and Marina will go off and be with somebody. As Marina mentioned, we did start solely with couples and thought that we were only going to be with couples. But then we discovered that we kind of like having single men that, where he and I can lavish lots of attention on Marina and she can be the center of attention, which is very fun.
Yes, it is.
Mm-hmm. Queen Marina.
There have been times when I've just watched, but that's relatively rare. I typically like to participate, and Marina likes for me to participate when, it's called an MFM, meaning male, female, male. And that orientation of those letters is important because that is a situation where the men don't have contact with one another. Whereas an MMF would be where there's male-male contact, which we don't do.
Interesting. Okay. So even the order of the letters is an indicator to other swinging couples, kind of where you stand on all of that.
Right.
What was the biggest mental block that you had to overcome from going from talking about swinging, this is obviously after it was accidental, to going on your first swing date that was not accidental?
The thing that we talked a lot about was how we were going to approach emotions. And initially we thought that we were only going to be, the way that we phrased it was that we were going to be sexually non-monogamous, but emotionally monogamous. And meaning that basically we would be comfortable having sex, but then we weren't going to have feelings for anybody. And we realized very quickly that that's not possible for us because we're both very empathetic people and both very sensitive and feeling. And so that was something that we talked a lot about and arrived at some conclusions that we simply can't have sex without completely divorced from emotion because it's just not how we're wired. So that was a heavy lift for us.
Right. And I think that it makes it so much more enjoyable, the experience for us so much more enjoyable. Right. So that was a big piece to kind of have a little bit of a shift about.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Curiositors, just a quick pause to show gratitude to our sponsors and give you some special deals. It's that time of year for front porch pumpkins and football barbecues, but here in the southern U.S., mosquitoes can still be an unwanted part of the equation. I've been using Insect's mosquito service since 2019, and I love that they guarantee their work and pollinators are always top of mind. But don't wait to get on their schedule. If you're in the Florida Panhandle or the Gulf Coast of Alabama, give Insect a call, ensec.net. I'll be honest, there are not a ton of podcasts in my rotation, but the Jordan Harbinger Show is one of them. He and his guests weave story and thought with such conversational ease. You get sucked in the best way possible. I recently listened to episode 1031 with guest Dr. Sarah Hill about how birth control rewires women's brains. I love that he chose that topic, and it's so good that you'll want to take notes. I also really love episode 784 with Rami Romani, who shares incredible stories of ancient and modern day Egypt, including a super intense escape story with him and his wife, and the truth about ancient Egyptian curses. I mean, just from those two episodes, you can see how varied his topics are. You can't go wrong with adding the Jordan Harbinger show to your rotation. It's incredibly interesting. There's never a dull show. Search for the Jordan Harbinger show. That's HARB as in boy, IN as in Nancy, GER on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. This show is also supported by the UWF Historic Trust. Don't pick another boring venue for your next work event. Check out one of the Pensacola Historic Trust's 12 museums. Now, if you watch the show on YouTube, you see the beautiful backdrop of Trader John's, the exhibit where I record the show inside the Pensacola Museum of History. Booking an event with the Trust will not just be a memorable event for your guests, but also support the efforts to keep Pensacola's historic charm preserved. Learn more at historicpensacola.org. Now back to the show. Remember to stay till the end where I give you a sneak peek of next week's episode. So how did you, A, come to that conclusion? Was it a trial and error? And B, how do you handle that now with wanting to stay monogamous with one another, yet experiencing the soup of emotions that come with sexual experiences?
I think I forget what you said A part was, because the B part of the question was so good. So what happened, I think, so we're not monogamous anymore, and we're not monogamous emotionally or sexually. So what changed was we thought we were going to end up being what, as Tristan was saying, we thought we would end up being just sexually open, but then being really reserving our feelings and our emotions for each other. But what we realized is that didn't make it as enjoyable. So to be able to connect with somebody and have an emotional connection, an intellectual connection, for me is so much stronger actually than a physical connection. That it was really important. And once we realized that pretty early in the process, that we knew we would have to identify that and move forward with it, if that's what we chose to do. And we decided that we were okay with that. You have to be very strong in your relationship to be able to allow that. And so we knew that we were going to hit bumps in the road, and we did, and we've had obstacles, but we just continue to kind of work through them. And it's important to us that this is part of who we are. It's part of our relationship now. And so we know that the obstacles will still be there. There'll still be other things might happen, but we're committed to working through them, because we've always even talked about the fact that if we stopped playing, if we stopped having sex with other people, we would still be swingers, because it's changed who we are at our core. Like we're just not, it's okay. We've given each other permission to have feelings for other people, to look for other, that if someone feels something for you in a relationship that with that person, that's okay. And so we've given each other a lot of room and space to grow that way, but still maintaining our relationship and getting stronger, because we're building a different type of relationship now.
And to be clear, that doesn't mean that everybody that we have sex with, we have this really intense emotional relationship with. Some we do. And it's just, there has to be at least some sort of connection and some sort of chemistry for us to enjoy, sex with others.
Right. Usually.
Yeah. I mean, and there are times when there's no connection, no at all. We just
a party or something.
Yeah, like at a party. Yeah.
That's so funny. I love watching y'all giggle and look at each other. It's just so funny, just so entertaining to me. So as you're describing your emotional and intellectual connection with your partners, I'm wondering about repeat dates, repeat partners. At what point does swinging just become polyamory?
That's a really good question. I think if there's nothing that we can share with your listeners, with your viewers, with the people who are watching us and thinking about this for themselves, is that anything with the lifestyle, just like with so many other things, it's all a spectrum, and it changes and it moves, and it depends on the couple that you meet, and it depends on the party that you're at. So the definitions and the labels that we all use are different for each people. And so when you asked about what kind of swingers are you, well, there's that's just a soup of different labels and terms that we can use. And it does change depending on the situation. So the definition of polyamorous as well can be confusing to people, or they're not sure that they understand. So from our definition of what something polyamorous would mean is that it's so much more of an intense relationship. You are literally spending time together with families, perhaps, or you're creating a life together with another person. If it's a throuple, there's three of you, you're creating a life together. Or if it's another couple, then the four of you are moving forward and actually creating life and patterns and things together. Whereas, so that really kind of, you're considering each other in your decisions. Even would be like, like, what are we going to do? We're planning vacations, or we don't make decisions without each other. Like that would be a sample or a way of saying something is polyamorous. But so we both have playmates that we've known for years. And so when those folks are repeat playmates, some of them are really just playmates. Some of them are good friends. Some of them I call my lovers, because they're men that I see on a consistent basis that I have a relationship with, but they're not the person that I turn to if I have a problem. I could if I needed to. It's somebody that I feel like if there was an emergency and I needed somebody, I have a handful of my lovers that I could call or contact or something like that. But so it's kind of like where they fall in my own personal spectrum. And that's probably different for everybody. But those types of relations still aren't polyamorous. I don't consider those people in any kind of decision that I make, or if we're going to be doing something. So that's kind of maybe a little bit of a differentiation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a good definition and a good barometer.
Yeah.
I get the feeling that all of this is not really about the label, that the labels are just a courtesy to others within the community to kind of navigate, that it's really about not fitting into a category.
I think that is, for us, it is that way. There are so many people that use so many different labels. And that's why we even sometimes will say, we've been doing this for a while. We talk about it. We have a podcast about it. And yet there's things where people talk about, like, there's a dynamic called a stag vixen dynamic. Well, that can be a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And I remember when we were first in the lifestyle, we were trying to figure out where do we fit in? What is the spectrum that we're on? Because we're clearly not just going to be with couples, and we're clearly not going to just have these MFMs. And then we kind of want to date people. So we don't really even know for ourselves where we fall on that spectrum, unless we're in a certain, relationship. If I'm going out on a date and I tell Tristan, I'm going on a date, here's what I'm going to do, I'll see you when I get home. Like, he's not even invited. I might choose to tell him or not, because that's part of our fun piece of a dynamic for us. Like, he actually enjoys that. Like me saying to him, oh, I'm not home because I'm out on a date. Like that he didn't know about the surprise. So that's something that's totally different. That's considered more of a hot wife dynamic, because the wife is responsible for her own. But that even changes, because then there's some men that set up all their dates for their wives and they call it hot wife too. So, it's so confusing, and there's just no black or white. It's just not 2 + 2 = 4.
Which is why we say that we just take situations as they come. And there are times when we do certain, have a certain style, and then times when we have a different style, and we're constantly evolving and always trying new things. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I like to call it a sexual buffet. And sometimes you want something on one end of the buffet, and sometimes you want something on, in the middle of the buffet, and just,
He does. He calls it that all the time.
It's actually a very good explanation. I immediately understand that. And I can see why people who have a more traditional and black and white set of relationships with, their spouse and their family and friends that are couples or whatever, I could see why they would be endlessly curious in the area of definition, because this is so defined, it makes it so different. So moving on to our next question. This one is another doozy. I tell you, I've got some great curiositors. They are some curious people. And their question was, what can swinging give you that only swinging can give you?
It's that last piece that's kind of tricky, that only swinging can give you, because I don't know. My answer is confidence. And I think that we've both experienced a tremendous increase in our confidence. For us, swinging has been a way, and probably a more fun way than other ways. But I think me in particular, I've experienced a lot of personal growth. I talk about very openly that I have always had social anxiety, which is not a very good character trait for swinging. So I've really grown in that respect. And with that growth has come confidence, and then with confidence comes more growth. And so it's a really interesting and neat circular pattern of growth. But you can certainly increase your confidence in lots of other different ways. You could work out, but it's more fun to have sex. So
I mean, Toastmasters, but yeah, that's not as fun.
yeah, true.
So if those are your two choices, I'm going to go with swinging versus Toastmasters.
Yeah,
I mean, swinging is a lot less anxiety provoking than Toastmasters. But for me, so it's totally different, because for me, the opportunity is, and I think that we didn't know that we were really non-monogamous for all this time. And so for me, I'm a very social person. So we are total opposites.
Mm-hmm.
Don't ask me how this lasted this long to be total opposites. So I'm the extrovert. I'm the one that feeds off of other people's energy. Going to parties is exciting for me because there's, oh my God, all these new people that I get to talk to and learn about. And I'm always asking people what they do. And I'm truly usually interested in what they do and talking to them and getting to know them. And so that really has opened up that opportunity for me. So it's just the opportunity to meet more people and then be able to have on top of it this kind of even if it's just a party where it's just a kind of a sex party, a swinger party, where you may or may not see that person again, I still enjoy that. I still get personal satisfaction out of meeting new people, creating relationships in that sense, even if it's only for the night, and then having some amazing sex on top of that. So there's a whole energy piece on that goes with that as well. So it's this huge swell of all the endorphins of things that I love. That for me is what swinging has opened up. I can go to parties and meet people, but then you get the nice sexual high off of it as well. So that's the difference.
The next question is, how honest do you plan on being with friends and family about all of this?
That's a good question. Mm-hmm. So we started off not telling anybody anything. We started off literally, there were 2 people on the planet that knew we were doing a podcast, and that's because they were helping us do the podcast. We didn't tell friends and family. There's very few people that know about our lifestyle within our inner circle. So that was a challenging decision. But then when the podcast really started to gain some traction and a lot of people enjoyed listening to our stories, we realized that we aren't going to be able to be as anonymous as we thought we were going to be able to be. We also realized when the pandemic hit and we were doing a lot of this work at home that we have 2 older children, our teenage and 20-year-old, 21 now, sons live at home because it's a pandemic. And so we really had to make some decisions about who we told and what capacity we told them. The other piece of the puzzle was really challenging is that my mother has moved to the area and she wondered why we were going out all the time and traveling and doing all these different things. And so it didn't take her long to get suspicious that something was happening. And so I ended up having to tell her. And that's been a really tough road. It's been really, really, she was not happy and not accepting, but has come around to say, I want you to live a life that you're comfortable with. And if you're comfortable with, then I have to be happy for you. So it's been challenging. But we don't tell a lot of people because we don't want to put pressure on people to think that they have to behave or act in a certain way because, we have this podcast, or even in the lifestyle that it makes people uncomfortable. So we don't ever force it down anybody's throat. We rarely talk about it with people unless you're out at a bar and you can tell that people are really fun and interesting and the conversation goes a little bit crazy. If we do end up telling people what we do, so many times the answer will be, oh, I could never do what you do, except for this one time. This one time in a hot tub in Vermont. And I'm like, oh, but it happens all the time. People are like, oh, I could never, ever do that except for, and there's almost always an except for, and I love to wait. I love to hear what the except for their experience was. And then they just want to know more about how, gosh, that really was kind of probably a hot experience for them. Like, how do I do that more often? So that's tends to be where it comes from.
Yeah.
So with your mom and maybe others who have that strong visceral response towards your lifestyle, how do you handle those moral judgments in those situations?
For me, it is just kind of explaining where we're coming from, what we're doing. And my mother even said to me, why don't you just divorce Tristan? And I said, but I love him. And why would we do that to the children? It's just, we're just getting a physical satisfaction out of being with other people. And then even if there's an emotional piece to it as well, because her judgment is definitely there. I think what we both know is that people judge people all the time. You can be judged for the kind of car you drive. We understand this is not everybody's choice. We understand it's not everybody's lifestyle. So many people don't understand how we could possibly do this, which is why we started the podcast. Mm-hmm. We wanted to talk about how does your average professional, upper middle class couple kind of go through this that can be successful. Because it wasn't because our marriage was in trouble. It wasn't we were looking to fill a hole then, but we were really together enough to realize that there's some places and ways that we can both gain some things that will make us better people in the end, better people for each other, better people for ourselves. And so taking their judgment out of it, they can judge about whatever they want. We try not to let any of that really bother us. We know we're okay and we know what we're doing is okay. And we talk about it all the time. So there's no hiding. There's no way of even, it's just not negative.
And you said your sons know?
They do.
And what was their reaction?
We like to call it the 100,000-foot overview. And so the conversation went more along the lines of, first of all, we started and we said, we're not going anywhere. So we want to tell you a little bit about our relationship. You know, mom and dad have been together for almost 30 years now. And love is not a pie. And you can love more than one child. You can love more than one best friend. You can love the world sometimes says that you can only love one spouse, or one person is your love interest, but does that really make sense? And so we talked to them kind of really in that framework. And then we also told them that we've always been so incredibly supportive of them just finding love. You know, it doesn't matter if it's, a man or woman, transgender person, whatever, any of those things, it just doesn't matter. If you find someone that loves you for who you are, that's a gift. And so don't ever shut that down. And we hope that our boys feel comfortable and confident to have whatever experience that they want to have as they figure out their own sexuality. And sexuality changes and it's fluid and that's okay too. And explaining all of those things. So we kind of said that that's what happened for us, but we told them that we've always encouraged that and have told them to live their authentic lives, and that we realized we were living our authentic life, but we weren't honest about it with them. And so we just wanted to make sure that they understood that our relationship may be fluid as well. They may see things or hear things, or now they hear us talking because we do the podcast and things, but sex is fun. Sex is okay. Sex is good. Sex can be safe. It can be exciting. And so we're trying to bring all that positive stuff about having multiple partners, having an open sexual relationship is such an amazing gift to give your partner. So we wanted the children to understand that that's where we're coming from. And it's from a place of love and excitement and caring for each other.
Right. Right. And how can, and we've always encouraged them to be their authentic selves. And how can we tell them that and then not be living our own, or, not being open about our own authentic selves. And so we just, it was a little hypocritical. So we decided that we would basically let them know what we were up to.
Right.
Within reason.
We did tell them they could ask us any questions.
No, you're kidding me. Well, what was their reaction? Would they just stare blankly at you? I mean, that was really good. Did they just go, okay, and walk away? Or did they stare blankly at you? Was there follow-up questions? I'm curious how teenage and nearly teenage boys would react to something like this.
Well, the 21-year-old knew, didn't surprise us that he had figured it out. The younger one.
Well, the 21-year-old told us we knew that he knew, and we knew the gig was up when he came to us about one of his relationship. And he's like, well, you guys don't have a traditional relationship. So, and that's how he started the conversation.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So we were like, oh, what? Oh, I don't know what you're talking about. And then the next, as soon as he left the room, we were like, oh shit, we are so outed. So we better have this conversation now, which that was kind of, the conversation was coming. It always had been like, man, we really got to fess up because, but yeah, so he knew.
Yeah.
But they both, we gave him a little bit more of insight because he's had relationships and he's had love interests and things like that. The younger one, who's 15 now, late bloomer, pandemic, who knows, kids these days, what do you know? And so the goal was to really, again, make sure that they knew that whatever they wanted to talk to us about, that we were totally understanding, and we would never judge them for their choices. We might try and help them make decisions or things like that. But we would never judge them. And so that's why we kind of went with that direction. The younger one never really didn't say much of anything. He just, he's a 15-year-old boy. Like, it was kind of like, can we get finished talking sooner? Because I have a video game to go play and, and things like that. And the 1-year-old was a little bit more interactive, but we told him, ask us any questions you want. And I think we'll talk about it if we need to talk.
That's kind of what I wondered about when you said you have a teenager. So, okay, moving on to our next question. It's 1 word, 3 letters, STDs. How do you handle that stuff?
We practice safer sex always, and we get tested every 6 months, and we just, we're just careful. There's no way that you can completely mitigate all risk. There's going to always be risk, but we take the steps that we are able to take to to mitigate it.
And there does seem there's like a higher level communication. And as you said in our part 1 of our talk, was that this sort of lifestyle requires a quote PhD in communication. So yes. I think the reason perhaps that I kept getting asked, several people asked about STDs, is it makes me wonder if maybe that piece is not being communicated in those particular circumstances and those relationships. And so they're wondering if it's, that's maybe the perspective that they're coming from.
So I would say, I think that when we talked about it, things will happen, accidents will happen, stuff will happen, a scenario may happen. You don't have condoms with you or something like that. You have to make the choice for you at that point in time of what your risk level is. And I think you have to know that before you go in. So can you do this and be 100% protected from STDs? No, you cannot, because you can't kiss someone without being exposed to the herpes simplex virus, whatever is 1 or 2, I forget whichever one it is. But most of us already have that anyways. So that's not really considered an ST. Well, they call them STIs now. But you have to kind of make those decisions. And so it is totally up to you. There are people who don't have any care in the world about it, and they just want to have open, free love sex, and that's their choice. And so our choice may be to not play with those people and there have been times where people look down on you to say, we play with condoms. We don't have unprotected sex. For some folks, that's a deal breaker. That is their choice. It is totally fine. It's not our choice. And so then it's not going to be a match either way. It doesn't matter. And so if that's what it is, that's what it is. But the majority of people are understanding. So you just have to decide those things for yourself. But it's doable. It's 100% doable that you only play with condoms. I will tell you, I've never seen anybody with a dental dam. Like if the man is going down on a woman, I've never seen that ever. I mean, people talk about it in Reddit and things like that. And we get that question also, like, can we use a dental dam? You can use one. You have to talk to the other, partners about it. But I've just never even seen it.
Yeah, I've never seen it
come up.
Never seen condoms being used for oral. And so, there's a risk there. And so again, it's risk awareness and risk, and finding the level of risk that you're comfortable with.
The other piece really fast too, is that a sexually transmitted infection these days is treatable. The thing that's not treatable is something like AIDS,
which is still manageable.
And I think that maybe some of your folks are thinking about that. Are we going to get AIDS or something like that, or be HIV positive? And so, when you're tested, you test for all those things and make sure your test is as good as it is on the day that you walk out with your test, and then you go and play with somebody else, and that test can only tell you what was good the day that they drew the blood work. So if that is a huge concern, then I would definitely not get into the lifestyle. The reality is that getting in your car also can be dangerous. I don't mean to belittling it. I'm not making it not important. It's very important, but you make those choices. And so, but things these days are treatable and you're aware of them, and you just have to be an advocate for your own health and for the way that you want to play.
That's a very true statement. The thing about our particular county that I live in is we do have a high STD rate. I won't say how high because I don't really know, but I had heard that we hold some unfortunate record in the United States in our county. So I think there's a lack of education around that. And so maybe because of the lack of education, there's a heightened awareness of the prevalence of it. And maybe that's also where that question comes from. But I love that you kind of put it in the perspective of risk and education and that it sort of lives there. I got a lot of questions also about jealousy, and you've touched around this a little bit and talked about how important communication is, the fact that emotions don't stay in a box, right? It's not compartmentalized. Is there a specific way that the two of you handle jealousy when it comes up? Do you acknowledge it? What does that look like?
Interestingly, I've experienced jealousy more often with my female partners, more so than with Marina, because I know that Marina is not going anywhere. We like to say that jealousy isn't really an emotion per se. It is kind of an umbrella for a lot of other emotions. And jealousy is just the label that we put on it. So for me, it's more of a fear of loss. And like one of my first girlfriends that I became very close with, I had jealousy around her and another lover that she had. And it wasn't because of any particular thing that she was doing with this other guy. It was that I might lose her. And so I know that I'm not going to lose Marina. And so I really rarely experience any jealousy around her.
That's beautiful. You're so right. It's an umbrella emotion. Like anger is a secondary emotion. Jealousy could be considered a secondary emotion.
Yeah. For me, the manifestation, is a result of a fear of loss. It can be different for different people. Obviously.
Yeah. And that's what I say. It can be very different. But the book that really helped us understand is called The Ethical Slut. The slut is a person who takes control of their own sexuality and their own sensuality and takes responsibility for their own satisfaction in that area. Mm-hmm. And so it was such a liberating book. So if you guys haven't read it, it's great. Make sure you get the third edition because it's the most updated one. But anyways, they talk a lot about jealousy. And that was kind of the light bulb moment for us because we were working through a lot of things like when things happened. That book really helped us realize that you can say you're jealous, but that's not the point. We have to dig deeper. And so we've gotten very good, even for our own selves. I think now, if I feel that jealousy, if I feel a twinge coming, I know that I need to dig deeper and figure out what that is for me. And is that really something I even really need to talk to him about? Or is it just my issue? What do I need to do to make sure that I'm feeling okay or safe or with whatever it is that he was doing? And we've both talked about the fact that just because you're jealous doesn't mean I'm not going to not go on that date. If this is our arrangement and this is the relationship that we have, you may be jealous of that date. Let's talk about what that means for you. So does that mean you're jealous because I'm spending some of whatever free time I have with somebody else? Well, then we can fix that. Or are you jealous because of the intimate, close connection that I have with that other person? Well, we can also fix that because we have intimacy and closeness in other areas. Or maybe we can't. Maybe that person is going to offer something that I don't have, or she's offering to him something, vice versa. But talking about what that is and then being grateful. Like I really turned myself around to be saying, I'm so happy when Tristan finds somebody that is new and fun and exciting, because we've been together a long time and we've gone through all this stuff together and nothing's new and fun and exciting about any of his stories. They're all old. I love him. And I love your stories. They're so fun, but sometimes they get old, And so when you have a new lady who's just like, oh, tell me everything. And you're just so fabulous and wonderful. It feels good.
It does feel good.
Yeah. So I love the fact that he gets that validation from somebody else. And guess what? He comes home to me and he's like feeling awesome. I'm like, yes.
That is amazing. I honestly did not expect that set of answers at all. And I think that your answers and your insight, the work that you've done personally adds such value. And that's what I love about, people. And I love about the show is that if you lead with curiosity, you can find knowledge, growth, insight, perspective in everyone and in the most unexpected places. And I think you have really brought that. So in just the few minutes that we have left, can you share your top tips for more honest, open communication with your partner?
Yeah, absolutely. And I alluded to it already, which is the first for me is having the courage to be vulnerable with your partner and to talk about the difficult things. number two, building on that, is don't ever sweep the difficult things under the rug. You have to always confront uncomfortable.
Right. And I think for us, that especially entering into the lifestyle, we had to make a promise and a pact that we knew stuff would get tricky, and that we had to promise each other that no matter what, we had to talk about that. We may need time to think about it and process it, but you cannot be mad at your partner for something that they don't know or that you're going through, and your feelings and your emotions. And so that was so important to be able to do that.
Right. Absolutely. And when you have these difficult conversations, you have to really commit to one another to be receptive and to be respectful and to not prejudge and to actually listen and then have a dialogue.
Right.
Those are so
and
good.
I was just saying on that piece too, really fast, that the other thing too is that you don't have to talk your partner out of something. It's not like I'm not going to change his mind. And we've gotten to the point where I'm not going to say you shouldn't see that person or that bothers me. What I'm going to say is I'm having emotions and feelings about this relationship or whatever you're going through. So I want to talk about that. I'm not going to say you have to stop that, because that's not fair. But I need him to understand that I may be having feelings or things that we need to process, and we need to work through this together. And so we're honoring each other's space and each other's choices, but we need to be open and honest about what that's doing to us. And then let's work on that together, so that we can come to an arrangement or some kind of conversation or communication that makes sure we're touching base and we're okay. Because we don't want to hurt each other. That's obvious.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for all of this. It has been so much fun talking with both of you. And your podcast can be found on all the suspect places, right? Accidental Swingers Podcast.
That is correct. You can also find us on our website, accidentalswingers.com, and on Instagram at Accidental Swingers. And on Twitter, we're at Marina_Tristan. But if you type in Accidental Swingers Podcast, we come up on Twitter as well. We're pretty active on all of those. I answer anything that anybody messages us, emails, anything. Cool. And we also have a paid private community where people who are interested in getting into the lifestyle or wanting to explore or make their journey even better. We're doing stuff, lots of hands-on, lots of Zoom meetings and things like that to help people if they want to go on their journey.
Well, thank you again for sharing your journey with us and my listeners. This has been very interesting. And I'm just so happy that we met. So thank you so much. That's a wrap. Thanks for listening. Okay, so a lot has changed for the Accidental Swingers since we originally recorded this episode. I got a text message from Marina just before airing this, where she said, quote, "We're still in an open marriage and date other people, but we also met and fell in love with another couple. So we've become an open swinging polyamorous foursome." And there you have it. If you liked this episode, you'll also like the one I did with a psychotherapist who is also a swinger. We explored the question, what is monogamy anyway, and who decides what that means? That's episode 214. Stay tuned next week when I talk with the founder of a psychedelic education company, exploring the question, could psychedelics give us an edge in our careers? Until then, keep it curious.